above all, it's always great to see you all coming together. I still fondly remember. I can never forget how we used to, walk all the way from Men's Hostel to Christian Cancer Hospital to for fellowship, and then coming together and having a blessed time of fellowship during the times of college. I really fondly remember those times. It's always great to see you all coming together again, and it's an emotional, actually, emotional experience to come together again. Anyway, so I asked a question about how do you define responsibility in your own uh, in a single sentence. How do you define? How do you define responsibility in a single sentence? So if I ask you to speak, I think none of you will be speaking. So that's why I said, if you can just put it in chat box, I'll just see your responses. Yeah, the time starts now. You can start typing. How do you define responsibility in your own terms?
And I think it's like doing some work or activity.
Alfred, you can just type your response so that I can see. Just type in your responsibilities. But if you want to speak, you can speak. Alfred, you can go ahead and speak. You're saying something.
Yes, Anna, I think that responsibility is it is doing some work or activity, something that was entrusted to us.
I'll wait for one more minute. I have not gotten any responses so far. Oh, somebody has responded. Krishna. Somebody, Sudhir is actually some very high funda answer. He has given responsibility, the holistic character expected from you. How do you define, Sudhir, that one? A sense of owing to do something. Angela. Responsibility is one for which we will be accountable. Anila had said, knowing and doing our purpose at that situation. So each one can define our own definition. So that's what I asked for. Good that you're all having different approaches to the responsibility. Good. Someone is typing. Okay. Anyway, yeah, that's what. Like we will all be having different approaches or different perspectives about how do we define responsibility. When I was thinking about when Satish had called me and asked me to speak about this one, I was just thinking what I have to speak about and how do I define responsibility for my life. I was just thinking about. So for if you need a definition, you have to go for dictionary, right? I didn't go for dictionary. So I just thought about myself, how do I define responsibility in my life? I thought we are all given uh, strengths, or we are all given talents, or we are all enabled by God to do something, right? We are all, so what I thought I will define responsibility as is God has given me abilities, and how do I respond to that? And when you just expand that, my response to the ability that God has entrusted to me is my responsibility, right? So how do I say that? It may seem very simple. God has enabled me with some things, and how do I respond to that? So having all these definitions can be correct, but this is how I tried to define it. My response to the ability that God has entrusted to me. My response to his ability. Because God says nothing that is that we have is from us. It is given by God. So why to boast about it? So if you are able to do something very great, it's not that you owned it or you have an intrinsic ability, but it's all given by God. So why to boast about it? That's what. So having explained about what is responsibility, do we all have same abilities? In another way, if I have to put it, does God gives us equal abilities? Yes or no? Does God gives us equal abilities? Either you can say yes or no. You can type or you can say, yeah. Reginald said, Helena, if I have to say that, yes, she said. Reginald felt that she believes that we all are given equal abilities. Regina, can you sprint like Usain Bolt? Can you? I can see your face. You're smiling now. Can you run like Usain Bolt? No, right? No, we can't run like that. So our answer is very obvious. She said no. Okay, she said no. She can't. She says she can't run. Okay. So it's very obvious that I'm not saying God is partial, but God in His grace and God in His mercy, God in His fatherly love, has given us different abilities. Different abilities. Different ability. Definitely, we are all not same. God has given. Let's suppose if we see some of you can sing well, we all could hear Satish singing well. But if some of you sing on the phone, we will not be able to listen to them comfortably. No, some people can sing better. Some people can speak better. Some people can, play musical instruments. So we are all given different abilities by God. So that we have to understand. So we are all not given equal abilities. Equal abilities are not there, but there are some things which God has given equally. God has given us life. God has given us good health. God has given our families. God has given it for all of us. For all of us students, God has given equal abilities to study in a medical college. For all this particular group, God has given you ability to study in a medical college, and you are privileged, right? You are privileged to be a medical students, and you are going to be doctors. Not everybody has that. So all the people in the world are not given equal abilities, but a group of people are given equal abilities. But what God looks at us when He enables us to do something is not the results. Is God interested in our results or God interested in our responses?
Responses.
Not interested in our results.
Interesting.
So to see, I hope it's not. I hope it is not already boring for you, because it's all nothing very particular as a story in a Bible, or I'm exposing on that. So I'm just making you to think so that the perspective about how to be a responsible student, how to be a responsible person in a family, or how to be a responsible person in a fellowship, will be able to understand. So if you see that, okay, let's suppose you see in a hospital setting, you all go to hospitals, right? Each of us have a particular responsibility, but not equal responsibilities. How do I say that? Let's suppose you go to a hospital. At the entrance, there will be security. At the when you go to a casualty, there will be a nurse, there will be a doctor, and as a head of the hospital, there will be a medical superintendent. But each of them have a particular mission, as a common mission, to serve the people or to treat a people or treat a particular. Let's suppose a institute has a mission statement, or this is how we want to work. We want to work. So they all work towards that, but each of them also have a special, particular responsibility, because they are abled differently by the institution. Let's suppose a security is not entitled to treat anybody. So if he doesn't treat a patient, nobody is going to blame him. But if that person is not controlling the crowd outside the hospital, then he will be held responsible. So let's suppose a nurse is there. If nurse is not entitled to, maybe she'll not be able to do a surgery. But if she's not administering the medicines carefully, then she's responsible for that. If somebody asks you, why did you allow this many relatives to come into the hospital, that's not his responsibility. His responsibility is to treat the patients. But together they all have a responsibility to take care of the patients. Together they all have a responsibility to fulfill the mission of the hospital, but they have different responsibilities. If you take the same thing in biblical perspective, in the parable of talents, in the parable of, you all know parable of talents, right? So when that king has given the talents, he didn't give the talents equally to all those three persons. No, for one person he had given one talent, for other person he had given 5 talents, for the other person he had given 10 talents. So when you see that, is God unjust in giving different talents to these people? No, we don't know why did God gave, or that particular king had given different talents to the three different people, right? For one, why can we ask God, Lord, why did you given 5 talents to this person? Why can't everybody get 10 talents? Why can't everybody has given 5 talents? We don't know why did God do that. So each of them were given different abilities. We don't know how God assessed their abilities. So at the end, what the story ends like this: the person who got 10 talents brings 10 more talents. The person who got 5 talents bring 5 more talents. But the person who got 1 talent, he just returned the same talent which was given to him. So is God, the same question I asked before, is God interested in our results? Yes, he may be interested in our results, but beyond the results, but what God is interested is how do we respond to what God has given to us, right? So what did he say to the person who got 10 talents? And when he brought 10 talents, he said, very good, you very good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in what you had received, so you will be given more responsibilities. So the person who got 5 talents, when he brought 5 more talents, God didn't say, why didn't you make 10 more talents of that? No, he didn't say that. He again told him that you are a faithful and good servant, and I'll make you responsible for more. But the person who got 1 talent, when he brought the same talent without multiplying it, God was not happy with him. So God, when you see this parable, the results are not in our hands. For the abilities that God has given us, how much the production, how much is the multiplication is not in our hands. But how do we exercise the abilities that God has given is in our hands. That's what God will be interested. That's what God is very particular about. The same thing when God was teaching about the parable of seed. He said, a one seed can multiply 30 folds, the another as 60, another as 100 folds. So how does the seed multiply? The multiplication itself is as a character of the seed, but how much multiplication is not in the hands of the seed. So God enables us according to his wisdom, but God expects us to respond to that ability or to respond to the talent equally from all of us. He expects sincerity. He expects us to be hardworking. He expects us to be people of integrity. He expects us to be people of responsibility. So it is very important to understand. So if we don't understand this, no, we'll become very jealous about other people. Why did this person, is more, talented, or why did this person looks more beautiful, or why does this person can only sing, or why does this person only is speaking in the fellowship? Why not me? Or all these things, the competitive spirit will be coming in. No, to grow as a fellowship, we have to understand that each of us were given different abilities. That's why even in the New Testament, Paul says there are different parts in the body. Each has different functions. Each were able to do a different purpose. But what God looks at us is that how are we responding to the abilities that God has given us. So having said that, so we are all, I think every one of you will agree now that we are all are differently made. No, we are all given different abilities. We are all given different abilities. We are all given different talents. So each of us not the same. We cannot accomplish things equally, right? We cannot accomplish things equally. Can everybody get first rank in the college? No, we cannot. But can everybody do hard work? Yes, we can all do hard work. Can everybody be sincere? Yes, we can all be sincere in our work. Can everybody get the same? Can everybody who writes your NEET exam can get into medical college? No. But can everybody prepare well for the NEET exam? Yes. So now you can understand that with the God-given abilities, they can be a uniform response, but they cannot be a uniform result. So when there is a uniform response in a fellowship or in a community, the community will grow together, or a fellowship will be stronger. But there is no uniform response, so then the burdens will become greater. It will be very difficult because somebody, when you see a bullock cart, no, when the right side fellow doesn't work well, the force will be falling on the left side bull. So it will be difficult to pull that cart further. The same thing in fellowship. When you don't share, when you don't exercise, when you don't respond to the abilities that God has given you, the fellowship will suffer. So that is, I think we have to understand that fact very much. We have to understand that fact very much. Having said that, we all have specific response. We all have uniform responsibilities, but also a specific responsibilities. We all can run, no? As the same example of Helena said about, can we all run? Yes, we all can run, but somebody can run faster. So can we all sing? Yes, we can all sing, but somebody can sing sweeter. Can we all do hard work? Yes, we all can do hard work, but somebody can accomplish much better. So the results are not in our hands. The results are not in our hands. So when you see one of your brother is achieving more, we don't have to feel jealous about, because the increase or the result is from God. Man cannot accomplish anything. No, man cannot accomplish anything. So because of this, God has also explained a beautiful truth in the Bible, saying that rejoice with those who rejoice, but also mourn with those who mourn. I think you would have all seen the movie Three Idiots, no? Have you seen? Yeah. Satish, have you seen Three Idiots?
No.
Oh, Alina, have you seen? Oh, good. Satish, who is that at the back?
Pastor గారు వాళ్ళ అబ్బాయి.
Anyway. I'll tell you about, I have seen this movie. So in that movie, when these three fellows was sitting, the exam result comes, and yeah, initially they were all very, I think Amir Khan's name will not be there in the regular category. So two other fellows were very sad. So they thought, okay, one of our friend who had actually helped us in the exams had failed. But somebody tells them that you fellows, this fellow's name is not in the regular pass list, but he is the first ranker of the university or whatever college. And suddenly they become even more sad, because they were not happy that their friend got first rank. They were sad when their friend was failed in the exam, but they were not happy when their friend got first rank. So what did we understand? That's the human nature, that when somebody, there are a lot of prayer points, pray for our relatives who are who fell sick. What if it is very easy to feel sad about when somebody is crying or anything, but it is very difficult to rejoice when somebody is rejoicing. How do I say that? See, recently I took care of my father. He was in COVID hospital. He was admitted in KIMS hospital. Eventually he died. But there are people who got better when I prayed for, when my friends, relatives got prayed for. What should be my response? Will I rejoice at the healing of others at the same time when my father died? it's not easy. That's why God said, Paul says, rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. So it is easy to mourn when somebody is crying. It's easy to go and put your hand around them and say it's okay. But it is not easy when you are suffering. Imagine you two roommates are there. One fellow just passed and one fellow get good rank. Will you go and be happy and rejoice with him that he got good rank and you have not got? Because both of you have prepared well and you didn't get good marks, but he got. Same thing happens in the fellowship. So when we don't understand this truth, that results are in the hands of God, results are definitely in the hands of God. When we don't understand that, we will become jealous and we will become bitter. We'll become bitter about each other. We will become bitter towards God. We'll become bitter towards our own friends. We'll become bitter about our own brothers and sisters, thinking that results are in our hand. That's what same happened. That's what same happened in the life of Cain and Abel. God accepted Abel's offering, but he rejected. But he didn't. What God was actually looking at, sir, how did they respond to the command of sacrifice? But Cain took it in a different way and he felt jealous about his brother and then he killed him. Same thing happens in our fellowships also. So when somebody is succeeding, when somebody is succeeding or getting more, maybe what do I say, becoming more prominent in some areas, you don't have to feel jealous. You don't have to feel jealous. The exaltation comes from the Lord. Exaltation comes from the Lord. So how do you respond at the success of others is one of the responsibility that we have to understand, that ability, God has given us something and the result is from God. Better you understand that. But what God looks at is at the end of your life, when you stand before God, God will say what God is not interested what did you achieve, but God is very much interested in knowing that how did you respond to the abilities that God has given you. So we have to understand this truth. So that will solve a lot of our problems as students and people in a fellowship. So we have to understand the responses is what God is interested, not the results. Results are also important. I'm not saying results are not at all important, but how do you respond is very much important in God's sight. So having explained about what is responsibility and what is a response and a result, but what are the hurdles to be a responsible person, right? As a citizen, we have some responsibility. As a student, we have some responsibilities. And as a member in a fellowship, we all have responsibilities. So, but what are the hurdles in being a responsible person? What are the hurdles? So you can just type your things, type your responses. What are the hurdles or what are the challenges, or in what situations you find it very difficult to be a responsible person? Like, let's suppose as a student, as a fellowship member, or just as a general citizen of our country, in what situations you find it very difficult to be responsible? Anila said, when someone is judging us, yes, it is, yeah. Sudhir said, selfishness and laziness. Good, Sudhir, good answer. I didn't say it's a right answer, it's a good answer. Yeah, it is very difficult to be responsible when somebody is judging us. Yeah. Any more answers? Any more responses? I'm not looking at answers. Any more responses? Okay, anyway. You can keep typing. You can keep typing. I can see that anyway. Or you can even interrupt me in between and
Can
say.
someone try to dominate us?
someone trying to dominate you. So it's like somebody's almost like equals to what Anila said, right? Somebody's trying to judge you or dominate you or to overpower you. Yeah, that's time. So how do you? So can you explain it better? Mm, in what way that is helping you to? That is in what way that is hindering you to be responsible? Satish, you said something, and somebody is bullying. Sunil Kumar said bullying us. Somebody is bullying you. Yeah, when you are responsible and somebody is bullying you, yeah, it's very difficult. You know, uh, a typical like somebody said, Angela said, when we are very much interested in the result, and we know we might not ending up getting it. Yeah. So when you are concentrating on the result, and when you don't get it, very good answer. Yeah. Good. I think Satish was saying something. Oh, no, Satish said it already. Okay. Yeah. So when these are all reasonably good, very good answer. Uh, Waiting that others are responsible. Okay. See, what happens is, I'll tell you, I think because being a practical topic, I'll share the practical things that had happened in my life, in the lives of others. So when we try to be, when we want to live a responsible life, when we want to live a responsible life, the major hurdles that deviate us or that hinder us from being a responsible person is what one Angela said correctly, that when our eyes are set on the results. And see, let's suppose we are very much sure that being a responsible person will bring us success. We will take whatever pain that comes. But even after all the pain, even after all the trouble, even after all the struggles that you faced, let's suppose the end result is a failure. Next time you don't take that much effort to be a responsible person. Well, let's suppose a biblical example we'll take. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were responsible for their faith. Their parents had taught them how to follow God and how to be a responsible citizens, even in a foreign country, when nobody was looking at them. When they were given a command that they have to worship that idol, they said, let's suppose they were very much sure that God is going to protect them. God is going to protect them. It's very because we are reading the story, whatever already happened, and it is very, it's a very famous example, like Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. When they wanted to stood for God, and God helped him, and God appeared like a fourth man, and even their hair didn't get burnt, and there's no smell of fire on them. But do you know? Have you read about this? Read this book called Fox's Book of Martyrs? Have you anybody read that book? Prapancha Kraistava Hatha Sakshalu. Have you read? Anybody read that book? Everybody is looking serious. Anila is looking very serious. Have you read that book? Anybody? Yes or no? Okay, I think Mona, most of you have not read that book. It is available. Once I bought just outside that Sharon bookstall only, I read. In that book, you will not see a single missionary who who was rescued and was alive just because they stood for their faith. You see hundreds and thousands of people were burnt dead. How did they kill them? Those old people who wanted to stood for God, they used to put gunpowder below their axilla. They used to put gunpowder in between the groins, and then they used to burn them alive. God didn't appear to protect them. Many instances. You see one instance when, this Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were burnt, were tried to burnt alive. God appeared and saved. But there are many instances God didn't show up. God didn't show up to save them. In fact, it's not that is God not interested in protecting them? Is God not interested in when they are responsible for the faith? Is not God interested? You all have heard about Staines, no? Graham Staines. You all would have seen the movie also, The Least of This. They were burnt alive in a car. Why did God not showed up? No. Why did God leave them? Why did God allow them to burn like that? And even the small children, the two small children, just died in the car. Is God impartial towards them? Is God partial toward them? Did God like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and their faith is greater, and the faith of these innocent missionaries who are dying even till today? Is God partial? No, God is not partial. What is God looking is, again, the response to the call that God has given us. The results are not in our hands. The results are not definitely in our hands. So when we are very much sure that, if I stand for my faith, I'm going to live for some 10 more years, it's very easy to stand for God. But when you know that even if I stand for my faith, even if these people are going to kill me, even if my children or my parents or my sister or my brother are going to be harmed, are going to be killed, can you stand? Can we stand? No. So that's the same thing happens when we look only at the results. But God is not important. God is not looking at the results. God is looking at the responses. God is looking at our response, how we stand for the ability that God has given us. The same another thing. So let's suppose somebody said bullying. People, yes, definitely bully you when you stand for faith. During my third year exams, third year. When do you have pathology, pharmacology? Second year, right? Yeah, second year. During my second year, there was a time we used to have all the study chairs with the planks, the wooden planks. You all would have prepared sitting on the chair with the wooden planks. So there was during that preparation, there was a night when power was off, power was gone. So you have these big candles, So I was sitting in my room. I put 4 candles at the corner of this wooden plank, and I was studying. Whole night I was studying. Because of that candle heat and that not much of light, I was like, my eyes were tearing up. So it was very hard. Headache was there. It was eyes were tearing up. So next day morning, went to the examination hall, and for my difficult part, there was some scenario was given for a essay question. Essay question. Basically, they have said the scenario, the answer for what the question is. Question was, so and so child has come with some anemia, bleeding gums, and hepatosplenomegaly. What is your diagnosis? And write the pathophysiology. So at that point of time, I could not think much. I thought it's a megaloblastic anemia, and I put megaloblastic anemia as a diagnosis. And as soon as I put megaloblastic anemia on my paper, there was some murmuring happening in the examination hall. They said the diagnosis is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So what do I do now? What should I do at that point of time? So it's in my choice. I just cut the megaloblastic anemia and write acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Even the examiner was telling, no, this is second year students should not be given a case scenario. They should be, they all should be, they were all helping us. Answer is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Just write about that. Somehow I decided not to do that. I was very sad. Knowing that I was writing a wrong answer, I just wrote it. I just wrote megaloblastic anemia and completed my exam, and I just came out very sad. So one of my best friend, no, not a Christian, so he came and said, hey, Vinod, what did you write? I said megaloblastic anemia. So, fool, did you not know the answer? It's acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I said, I know the answer just after. I just put that megaloblastic anemia. Why didn't you strike it? I said, I felt it is not right. The result, I got good marks. I got first class only, but that fellow who just told, why did you write, he just passed. I don't know why I got that result, but God just honored that. The second time, same. The next paper was microbiology. During that microbiology, Same again, me and one of my friend was sitting in the same room and preparing. Suddenly, those time we didn't have smartphones, no. Those are all Nokia Dabba phones. So we got a message in the night, 9 o'clock. I just opened. I said, ricket cell infection, epidemiology, pathophysiology, and that's a microbiology paper. Paper got leaked the previous night. So basically, during that time, till that point of time, ricket cell infection was never an essay question. So if that is when you see the previous exam papers and that was not an essay question, why would you read it? So now that I know the essay questions, will I start reading that topic which I have not decided to read? No, I thought I will not read that because that's not an important exam question. So I didn't read it. But now that I got a leaked question paper, I just saw that, I just closed it. But I know that tomorrow's essay question would be this ricket cell question. Will I start reading that? I decided not to read that. And I went, to my surprise, that was the same paper that came up. So ricket cell infection, explain it. Everybody were very happy and everybody completed it. I think those people, those of us few members of the fellowship, me, Chandan, Ravi, and Praveen, those friends who have not seen that question paper, whatever we remembered during the class, we just wrote and came off. Second, I was crying when I was writing the paper. Lord, what is it? 1 year we struggled hard and we did so much of hard work, and this is how you are honoring us by uh, leaking the paper, allowing the leak of paper. So second day again, same. The paper came as a message. The second day paper. Again, I was crying, Lord, what is happening? How do we respond? Second day, we went to the examination hall. And, suddenly there was a message. All the students get up and vacate the examination hall. We didn't know what was happening. So they said, within half an hour, a new paper is going to come from the university. The university came to know that the previous paper got leaked, even the present paper. So then that's the time when I looked at around, everybody was panicking. But those people, those of us who stood and said, Lord, we will not, uh, corrupt ourselves by reading those questions, we were very happy. We don't know what questions would come, but we were happy that God honors our stands, God honor our responses. So when you look at the results, when you look at the results and try to be responsible, oftentimes we fail because results are not in our hands. We should never ever consider the results and try to be responsible. We should not consider the comments of others. What do your friends say when you stand for God, when you try not to copy in exams, or when you try not to give some money, or whatever may be the reason, when you not take part in some parties, or when you try not to go for some things, your friends will bully you, friends will bully you. But will that affect your response to the God-given abilities, or will that change how you respond towards the faith that God has entrusted in you? We have to decide it for ourselves. We have to decide it for ourselves. How do you want to respond to the God-given abilities? God has given us a faith to believe in Him. That itself is a responsibility, that we keep our faith in God and not in man. So how do you respond to that God-given faith and God-given talents that is in your life? How do you respond to that? Don't ever consider the results. Don't ever consider the comments of man and how do people think, and decide how do you respond towards God. That is one thing that will when we consider only the results and when we consider the response of man. That's why Paul said, even if till today, if I am a pleaser of man, that's what he said. I don't want to be a man pleaser. I want to be a God pleaser. So whether it's in a fellowship, whether it's in a country, when in anything, even if you follow a rule, I don't know how many of you wear helmets responsibly when you're riding bikes. It is a rule from the land, that we live. People used to laugh. But even my own relatives used to laugh when I go to market with a helmet. They said, you fellow are going to buy vegetables and you're wearing helmet even to the next street. People try to bully you every time when you're responsible, but God looks at that. God looks at that. And when you stand for God, God will honor you. you. Even if he doesn't honor, that's fine. Okay, one man of God, I don't know, one man from Kerala, his name is Brother Moses Paulos. He died recently. He said, "The Lord is my shepherd. He may lead me to green pastures, but I'm also okay if he leads me to a butcher shop, mutton shop where that fellow will cut me and kill me. I'm okay. I don't doubt God's love in my life." We are happy when God leads us in green pastures and take it to the stream of waters, but we doubt God many times, when he leads us into those situations where people try to kill you and, you don't know what happens. So the lives of missionaries are ahead of us. There is only one example how God saved Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego in Bible, but there are thousands of people who died because of their faith, and even they are dying still today. So how do you respond? Will you be responsible for the faith? Will you be responsible for the call that God has given you in the fellowship, even when people are trying to mock you and the people are bullying you or anything? Or will you be responsible for that? So this is the broader perspective that I would give towards the responsibility. And if I have to give, I don't want to give, you have to responsible in your studies, you have to responsible in your prayer life. That is everybody. We know that. It's not that we don't know. It's not that we don't know. But I'll tell you some 3 or 4 points where we have to be responsible as a person in a fellowship. We have to be responsible in our sincerity and hardworking. The moment I entered my college for post graduation, my HOD had called me in and said, we don't care whether you are a brilliant student, but what we care is when you're sincere, whether you are sincere or hardworking. That's it. That's what we are going to look at. As an interns in Rangaraya Medical College, we used to, some of our friends, the Christian friends, used to carry a testimony that most of the Christians, they bunk on Sundays. They want to go to churches, but they don't work on Sundays. So that is a bad testimony, So when you are supposed to work, you have to work, whether it's a Sunday or any day. So they say these fellows, they say they want to go to church and they bunk on Sundays. Sometimes, if you ask outside people, mostly in fellowships, you will be having good testimony. Whether you don't want or not, sometimes we may act better when other people are looking at us. So this sister is very good, prayerful, or this brother is very active in fellowship. That is the kind of testimony. But if you want to get a real good testimony, talk to those fellows outside the fellowship. So they are the ones who will give you a correct testimony. How do you live your life in hostels? How do you live your life in college? Or how do you treat your colleagues? Or how do you behave with your seniors or juniors? Or how do you respond to the teachers? How do they, behave or honor their teachers or honor their people? They comment them, So those are the things. That is how testimony is not from the church. Testimony is what world tells, what the world gives to the Christians. So that is very important. So-called, oftentimes the testimony that we hear is they are very good Christians, but not good workers at work. They are not very good at the work that you do. So they are very regular to the fellowship, regular to the church, regular to prayers. But when you look at their academics, that is not speaking the same thing. They fall back. It's just that, God has given as I said, all of us cannot achieve the same thing. All of us cannot get good ranks. All of us cannot achieve gold medals. All of us cannot achieve first ranks. All of us cannot achieve first rank, but we all can study well. We all can be sincere. We all can be sincere to our wards. We all can be sincere to our duties. You all can be sincere to your classes. You all can be sincere. That is what God is looking at. That is what God is looking at. Are you sincere in that? That is your responsibility as a student. If you are compromising on that, forget about attending all these weekly fellowships. Forget about attending all these conferences, CMFA conference. You should not go there. It's like you mocking the name of God when you can't fulfill the responsibility that God has entrusted to you. You know, God said no to somebody uh, to enter into medical college, and God allowed a door for you to enter into that. And how do you take that? A great, you know, many people consider studying in a medical college as a great thing, but how do you consider it? Do you consider it as a blessing from God, or you just casually take it? Casually take it. So, are you sincere with your studies? Are you sincere with whatever God has given to you? As I said, mind you, again and again, I'm telling, I'm not talking about the results. I'm not at all talking about the results, but the response that you show towards God, whatever God has enabled you, are you giving correct responses to God? That is what important. God is not looking at your 10 talents. God is not looking at your 5 talents, what you have given. But what God is looking at is what you have, what you've been doing, what you're going to do with the same time, with the same kind of resources that you have along with all your friends. That is one thing. And the other thing is integrity. Integrity is how we behave when people even not seeing us, you know. That is very much important. So somebody defined integrity means like into me he sees. Into me he sees. That means into me God sees clearly. There is no obstacles. There is no secret life. Somebody said there is no secrets, but it can all be personal. So when you sit in your hostels, when you have access to your internets, what are the things that consume your time? No, what are the things that you're consuming your time? Now you're all sitting in homes, no? So what is your time filled with? How do I that's why I asked at the beginning, are you studying at all, or studying a little bit? You have to have goals. You have to have, you know, be responsible for the call that God has given. You have to be a people of integrity. Integrity means behaving same way when people are seeing us, when people are not seeing us, you be the same. When Daniel was, no, when that order was given by Cyrus that for 1 month you have to worship, Daniel was the same before. He was praying 3 times a day, and he continued to pray 3 times a day, irrespective of whether the sentence was death or he is released from the jail. So shall we be the same like Daniel, that unchanged, no, irrespective of the results, irrespective of whatever, can we respond in a same way and be a people of integrity? And the last thing is, I said the legacy, responsible in legacy. You know, when we live in a fellowship, we have a sphere of influence. They say even a normal person has influence just about around 10 to 15 people you live with. You will have that influence. So you're not only responsible for your own life, but you're also responsible for the lives of others. So people watch how we live. So it's not that my life was not without mistakes. I did commit mistakes. Those mistakes, if you have given me one more opportunity, I wouldn't have done those things. So those kind of mistakes were there. But do you hide it for yourself, or do you also share not only your success, but also the failures to your juniors so that they learn from your mistakes? You don't have to hide your mistakes from your juniors. I'm not telling you to put a mic and tell everybody that, oh, this is how I failed, or this is how I, spoiled my life. But there have to be some people, your colleagues, your friends, and also at least some seniors or some juniors, where you go to them and say, you know, I'm not perfect. You know, these are the areas where I failed. You know, these are the areas that I want you to be careful. I failed in these areas, but I want you to be careful, and this is how I corrected myself. So that is the kind of example that your juniors will be expecting from you. They don't want Vinod to be a greatest holy and holy person who never committed a mistake like Jesus. It's not like that. They want to learn from how we all, fall short, and how we live our lives carefully. You know, there are times where in my uh, just for example, there are times where I utterly failed in my personal life also, where I utterly failed in my academics. I never utterly failed in academics, but there are times where, with regard to patient care, there are some mistakes which you are not supposed to commit, but you have done. And sometimes patient die, no? They die in within minutes because of wrong things. If I try to hide them, how will the others learn from it? If I try to hide them, what I'm saying is the legacy that you live, the legacy that you have, people may not say that this fellow is an outstanding believer or never committed a mistake, but they may say he's just like one among us. But in spite of his failures, he tried to be best. He fell down, but he got up and he lived faithful. So if that is our testimony, God is happy. When you see in the lives of God exposed the mistakes of people, God exposed what the mistake of Moses, God exposed the mistake of David. God didn't hide it. Even they themselves didn't hide it. Even David said, Lord, I did it. I committed these things, but God used them. So that is the kind of legacy that we have to leave with our. That's what I tell you. At the same time, when you are talking about accountability, you have to be accountable to your, not only to your seniors but also to your juniors, because they follow you, they see your life and they follow your example. So not only share the, I'm not, just be careful whom you are sharing also, because it's not to be like a mic uh, announcement so that once you share something and it will be everywhere and all. What I'm saying is, you be responsible, choose those people whom you can trust in God, and then go and say that, especially what you should be concentrating is the next line leaders. And you know that, okay, this fellow is going to take care of the fellowship. So those are the fellows you go and tell them, these are my areas of strength and these are my areas where I failed. I don't want you to, follow these things, or I want you to follow these examples and leave. So that is the kind of legacy that you have to leave for this one. Coming to the accountability, I'm not going to spend too much on that. So whom to be accountable? Yes, uh, accountability is not that I come and ask you how you are studying, how you are doing, or did you read your Bible study? Why are you not attending fellowship? That's not accountability. That's like me, like a teacher coming and telling, disciplining you. So God treats us like sons and daughters. The way I treat my children is not the way I treat my junior doctors. No, here. So my children, I have to call them every day morning. Did you get up? What time did you get up? Did you have breakfast? What you have for breakfast? Did you read your Bible? That's not the way God treats us. God wants us to come to His presence and sit in His presence and say, Lord, this is how I did. Is it okay? Or Lord, this is how I'm doing all these days. Is it okay? The same thing happens in our spiritual life also. We have to be accountable to certain kind of people whom you can trust. That can be better to be seniors of same gender if possible, or may not be from your college, or it can be from your church, maybe from an organization where you can timely give them a report of your spiritual life. Even now, at least once or twice once in 1 month or 2 months, I write mails to my mentors and I say them, this is how I'm still, even after finishing my specialty and super specialty, I still have to study, right? Because to be good in your field, you have to study. I tell them, this is how I'm studying, or this is how I'm not studying. This is how I'm spending my time with mobile. This is how, I'm praying. And these are the struggles I'm facing. You just open your life as a book so that the people can read it and can give you suggestions and give you the ways to go. If you see those people who fail in life are the ones who don't have anybody to guide them, or who doesn't have anybody to uh, correct them in the ways that they're going. So if you don't have any person to be accountable for, you are going to fail miserably in life, because there are nobody to oversee how you behave. See, I'm not passing any judgment on anyone, but recently we all have seen, we have heard about, this brother Ravi Jack who failed, no? one of the reasons people say that he never had anybody to be accountable for. He was the leader of his life, he said. That's what they say. I'm sorry for using his name, but that's what can happen to all of us. When you don't have anybody to tell you this is wrong, or this is correct, or this is how you have to do, or it is better if you can do this, if you better you consider this, but what you're considering is correct or wrong. If we don't have anybody to tell us, we are going to fail, because we cannot be the masters of our life. God has to be a master, and we have to stand upon the shoulders of those giants. When I say that, those people who are walking ahead of us, better to be on their shoulders so that we can see the way clearly. When you sit on we all have played with our fathers. When we sit on the shoulder of our father, we also can see clearly like our father, what is ahead of us. If you don't sit on the shoulder of somebody, you'll not be able to see what is ahead of us, whether there are thorns, whether there are stones, whether there are pits. You are going to fall badly. So it is always better to sit on the shoulders of somebody so that you can see the way better. So that is the thing I'll tell about accountability, and so that's how I can close here.